Phase 1 of the Bay Bridge Transportation Plan gave Costanoa County its first passenger rail station, as well as a bypass highway towards Baymont, aimed at alleviating some of the through traffic in Costanoa. In Phase 2, the county is looking to prime itself for the rapid expansion that will come with cross-bay access in Phase 3. First, we'll be adding some denser housing and commercial options around the train station to take advantage of its convenience and provide funding via new tax income. Then, we'll take on the build-out of the new freeway and associated interchanges that will replace the old highway into the city and, in the future, connect up to the Bay Bridge. And finally, at the end of the episode, I'll be giving names to all of our neighborhoods, so stay tuned for that. What I want to do first is add a little bit of density, particularly around the train station, because we're going to need the income from taxes to support the build-out of the freeway that's going to be coming in over here. The biggest reason for that is that I'm gonna have to purchase a lot of tiles to get all the way out to the map boundary over here, and it costs about 2.5 million. We're almost there, but it's also gonna cost us in terms of revenue, so I wanna make sure I have a little bit of extra overhead for that scenario. And I think where I wanna start is probably right in here. And we have the new Southwest asset pack that I definitely wanna be making use of around here, but just in general, I think I wanna be replacing some other assets around the city with those new Southwest assets, just because they fit pretty well in this California themed build. But let's go ahead and start here first. So I want to continue on these streets right here in this direction. And then in the middle here, I think I just want to have that be some sort of a plaza that leads towards our train station right here. So I'll get started first with building out these roads, and let me make sure I get the right distance from everything. And there we have it. I think I just kind of want to experiment a little bit with the Southwest assets in each of these spaces right here. And then I'll leave this one open for now. I'll probably come back to it later and do the detailing, but I just want to get a few of those Southwest assets in. And over on this side, you can see that we have the single family homes. For sure in this area, I want it to be a bit more dense than that, as well as over here, just because it's right next to the train station here. So I'll probably be putting in some of the these medium density row homes, as well as some of these larger buildings. Probably not any of the high density, but we'll see. Okay, and we've got all those in, and I gotta say, I am 100% biased in saying this, but I love these assets. They look so much like something I would see in San Francisco. It's actually, I don't know, it's kind of eerie sometimes. Like, this kind of thing is exactly what you might see in San Francisco right here, this building in particular, and then some of these other ones you see out in the Inner Sunset District, Outer Sunset District, like these kinds of styles. This one I could see essentially being like right next door to me. These buildings over here, you tend to see this more towards downtown, this style of building. So I'm really liking where this pack is heading. I did notice like some of these buildings are pretty shallow in terms of their distance from the street here. But you do see that, like, you see these big open spaces in the middle of blocks in San Francisco. So I don't think it's all that odd in the end, but I am considering maybe doing something a little bit different with this central area here, just to make more use of this land, especially since it's so close to the train station. And I think I have an idea of what I'd like to do. So if we take a look here, and I draw out some just guidelines right here, go out 56 meters on either side, you can tell that this right here is the center of this block. So what I'm thinking of doing, and this is something that I've actually seen in Japantown in San Francisco, is there's this one particular block that has a little alleyway going through it. So something along these lines right here. I'll just put this in like so. and delete these. And what happens is on the inside here, you get additional buildings. So we can start having something like, looks like I'm gonna have to adjust the zoning a little bit here. Let me do that first. And now let me get in just a few of these homes. Let's see what I can get. And then let's get rid of these, and hopefully our zoning is a little bit more fixed up now. It looks like it's not perfect. So let me see if I can adjust things a little bit. And I tried a few different things, but I just was not able to get it to work the way I wanted to. So I'm just gonna call it good there, and I'll do something else with these little spaces here. They're also kind of up on a hill right here, so maybe it doesn't make that much sense to have stuff there, but I'll just put in some detailing there. And it looks like everything's built out there, and more or less this is what I was going for. I would have actually liked to have these two homes here, but I'm okay with it being not quite perfect, so I'm just going to stick with it there. And let's get a little zoom in here. This is essentially what I was going for. You kind of walk through this little area, and there's this one little space here. It is a pedestrian street, so I guess those garages might not be that useful. Maybe we can say that the people who live here are able to bring their cars through here, but the idea is that it should be a pedestrian street. I don't really want any car traffic coming through here other than service vehicles. And while I'm here too, I actually do want to do some of the detailing right here just because I have the idea right now. So what I want to do is I want to add some fences in right here just to block off this back area from any sort of pedestrian access. I don't really want people just walking off the street and then walking into these backyards and kind of walking back here if I can avoid it. So I'll put in some fences kind of just at the back of these right here, and we'll say that's kind of a private area right there. But then right in here, I can make a little park space. So I ended up just putting in some of those small pocket parks in here, and you can already see that someone has started a fire in a trash can here, so that's wonderful for these residents. They get a little extra heat. I just kind of surrounded it with bushes, and then I put in these small hedgerows. It's probably not really high enough to be a deterrent for anyone to just like hop over these fences, but the larger ones kind of looked a little bit funky. They were just with the terrain here, it just kind of looked weird. So I went with the small ones. From this distance, I think it looks fine. You can tell that there's just a barrier here that is meant to keep this relatively private. So the other thing I want to do is I just kind of want to detail these up and get the whole sense for how this will look. And pretty basic in the end. I didn't want to do anything too complicated there. Just a few trees to make it look a little bit less barren back there. And then over in this other area, I just want to do pretty much the exact same thing. I want to put also this alleyway in here and make use of that sort of a style of building. And I think that is something that over here that at some point in the future I could make use of these alleyways in a similar way. But for now, I'll just stick with what I've got with these pedestrian roads. And things have built out there. Let's take a look at how it looks down here. And this one I was able to get the full zoning back here. I did things a little bit differently. What I did is I zoned these buildings right here first, and then I went ahead and built the rest out. So that seemed to help. I think in the end it's okay that it didn't work out here. We got a little bit of a different look there than we have over here. So that's totally fine by me. And then what I'll do is I'll just detail this back up because I'm over here. And then I'll start thinking about maybe rezoning some of the buildings in downtown. And I think that should do. I'm going to move on from this area and continue to think about what I can do right here. I think just having this open is pretty nice though, because the building is right there and it kind of fits in the general size of this block. So I think ultimately that'll be left relatively open, but we'll see. Maybe I'll put some buildings in there. So I want to swing back over into this area specifically. And I was kind of noticing this as I was taking some screenshots earlier, and I think it's just a little bit like abrupt, this density right here. So it's just kind of this like big wall of wall-to-wall buildings that are much larger than everything around it. So I kind of want to rectify that. And I think this is where I might be able to use some of that high density housing in the new Southwest pack. So if we take a look here, we've got this new USA Southwest high density housing. I think this is kind of a perfect place for it. The other thing we have also is the addition of some new signature buildings. So let me see if I can find one of those. And the only one I have unlocked is this Sunshine Hotel, and I don't exactly want to place that right now. I think I want that to be more of a dedicated build. I don't think I'll have anything. It kind of makes sense I don't have anything unlocked. I guess I haven't really built anything in the Southwest pack. So I'll just go ahead and I'll go and use the zoning, and I'll switch over to Southwest again and get that. For some reason it's not working. There we go. And yeah, get our Southwest high density in. So I was kind of zooming around and checking out where I can maybe put in a high density building. And I think where I've landed is right over here where this wingbacks is. The reason is it's just a low density use and it's in a very high density area in downtown. So I think it just makes sense to probably take that out and redevelop it. It also helps that this is kind of already detailed right here. So what I'll do is I'm probably going to have to see what comes in here, but I'm just going to zone the whole thing and see what happens. We've got 2 buildings. I don't want 2 buildings. So what I will do instead is I'll get rid of that and I'll try to use something about the same size. I think it was that size. Yeah, so I'll just zone in that one building and we'll see what it looks like, and I can potentially do a little bit of extra detailing around it. And holy cow, that's a lot of buses, but also our building is built and it's not quite as big as I thought it was going to be honest. And now that I'm looking at it, it could definitely bump up against this building here. So I may actually just do that and have that other building built in. So it's not really the high density I was looking for, but it is the high density that I'll be getting. So I think I'm gonna stick with it. It does look pretty nice. I mean, it is, you could argue it's maybe a bit odd, like these windows kind of just button up here, but I'm gonna say that these are wall-to-wall buildings, even though they're technically not. And what's in between here is just kind of a blank wall. And we'll see too how these things upgrade as well. Kind of wish this were the other way around, because I think that might make it a little bit better, but I'm totally fine with the way these two look together. And like I said, when they upgrade, they might get taller, so I'm gonna stick with those. I was looking around for spots that I could up the density, and the conclusion I've come to is that this area right here is probably a good candidate. So there's 2 particular areas that I'm looking at. So right over here, where Elizabeth Street and Market Street meet, and actually really where this street, Elk Street and Market Street meet together. Kind of this whole area here is a good candidate, primarily just because these are single family homes on Market Street. And I think that right about now is probably a good time to think about upgrading those to at least row homes. And then if I kind of swing over this way, I want to upgrade this area right here a little bit because it has this grocery store nearby, some schools as well. So I think it's a good area to increase the density a little bit. The other thing is that it is along this street right here, Weeping Street, that goes over to our industrial here. And this is a pretty prominent through street all the way up until here. So I think that would be a good place to increase the density as well. So I'll go ahead and I'll start over in this area here, and particularly right here. You can see we already had a little bit of development here, but I'm going to use some of those new southwest assets. And I think I'm just going to go, I don't know that it'll go all the way 6 units deep here, but we'll see. Yeah, and I guess it's just the 3 units deep is the max for that zoning type. I'm okay with that. We'll just have a little bit of space back there, and I can add in some trees and whatnot. And on this side right here, on this corner, what I want to do is I think I'll just add in one of the medium density buildings, and I'll probably try to add in just a small one there. We can flank it with some southwest homes there like this. Whoops. Let me fix that. Okay, and those are in there, and we can see the same sort of thing going on here that we've been seeing. I do like the scale of these assets. I think it's a good way to redevelop this area because these aren't like huge homes. So you could imagine that this is part of just like a slow development upwards, is that initially you have single family and then you go to kind of these like 2 buildings per lot here. So you increase the density in that way, and later on we can upgrade to buildings more like these ones here. So with that in there, I'm just going to do one more block, and it'll just be right in here, and I'll just take down these single family homes, and I'll leave this Neckbeard Mike's Comics. I actually wish I could make that a historical building because I'm a big fan of that one. And this time around, I was able to tuck some parking back in here, and I think that's a good use for that space. It does take away a little bit of the green space, like over here we have this nice green space here, but I think this particular area is going to start needing some additional parking capacity, because over here you can see like all of this street parking right here. In this area, Market Street does not allow for parking, so a lot of that parking ends up on some of these side streets. So it's a helpful thing to have a little bit of additional parking back here. And then right here, I just want to add in a few trees, and then I'll move on to the other area that I want to detail, which is over by that grocery store. Okay, so let's head over now to this area. And I kind of want to get a look actually of where our bus lines go, and nothing really passes by here. It looks like the only stop that's that close is over here. And I think there's actually another one, yeah, right there. So it's one stop here, one stop here. So this particular corridor, Umber Street, is one that I'm looking to densify a little bit. And then just anywhere near this grocery store, I think is a good candidate to increase the density on. And right off the bat, I can tell that I had been putting in some medium density row homes right here. So I think the best place to start increasing density actually is probably just right in this area. And I'll probably just do these 2 blocks right here, this half block and then this block. So I generally like the way things look here. The one thing I thought about after I'd already placed all this was that there's really no parking anywhere near here other than in this particular area. So all the people over here have to street park, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but there is just no other solutions in this area. So it's something that is on my mind. And then the other thing I noticed is right here, there's this little spot that I couldn't get anything zoned in just because there's probably some weirdness with these particular roads and how they were built. So what I'll do instead is I'm just going to bring in a path since we already have a path over on that side, and then I'll connect these two up. And that works just fine. So now we have kind of this whole area built out. This building right here, it's not amazing what it's doing. I'm not a huge fan of that, but I think if we just pop some trees back here, maybe it looks a little bit more natural, so I'll just stick with that. Yeah, and if I had something to put here, I think I would, but there's not going to be anything that I can fit there unless I could potentially fit one of the tiny fences that I've got here, if that'll, I don't know, maybe fit just on the edge. I kind of doubt it, but I'll try. Ooh, and just right there, it will actually fit. So I'm gonna put that in there. It will take a little bit of doing, but I'm gonna go ahead and put that in because I think it'll look nice. And I don't know, yeah, I'll try to include a gate as well. All right, and it took a little bit of doing, but I was able to get it. So I've got this gate right here and some UK fencing, and I took it all the way back to here. There's technically a gap, but you know, I can forgive that. So I think you won't really ever be able to see it unless you zoom in, but to me, it just feels a little bit better to have that there. So with all of that done, you can now see that our money is at 4 million. So I will have plenty of money to buy the tiles that I need to initiate phase 2 of our transportation project. And that's going to involve taking this 2-lane highway that goes straight into Costanoa over here and upgrading it into a 4-lane freeway. So there's going to be a bit of a challenge here, and I think the main thing is that the entrance here is going to be hard to work with because I think either I might have to delete it or upgrade it into one of the one-way freeways. So I don't know if that is going to cause any issues in terms of like naming it, or I don't know, just how the simulation works with importing. This is going to have to kind of go in stages. I'm going to do my best to not pause at any point. That is going to be a huge pain for anyone who is going this direction towards Costanoa, because if I say, you know, sever this connection right here and nobody can go this way anymore, they're gonna have to go all the way around this way towards the water here and then up towards Baymont and then back into Costanoa this way. So it's gonna be a pain for a little bit, but I think doing something like that is probably necessary. The other option is I can kind of build one side first and then upgrade this side. I'll kind of see what ends up fitting best, but I do think that I'd like to keep it, I'd like to keep the simulation running while I do this, just because I feel like it ends up feeling a little bit more realistic, and I think that's just kind of an interesting way to play, rather than pausing it, doing the whole upgrade and then unpausing it. So I have to do just a bit of thinking about where I'm going to start this project. I think it makes sense to buy the tiles kind of one at a time, so I'd probably start back over towards Costanoa here, either that or just buy one tile here and start working my way towards this way. I think the interchanges are something I probably will pause for, just because once I delete this, there's going to be no way for people to get from here over to here. I could just make like a quick bypass over this way and kind of avoid that, but that's a little bit too much. I think at that point, I'd rather just pause. So I'll take a few liberties there, but in general, I'm going to try to keep it running. So I've decided that I think this is the best place to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and buy that tile and then maybe a few tiles around it just so I have enough space. So I'll buy these 4 tiles just to get started. That is kind of annoying that this passes like through 4 corners right there, but I'll buy all those 4 tiles. It costs 880,000, which is quite a bit, 96,000 per month. We are at, let me double check that actually. Right, 1.5 million per month. So that is really no issue there, but I do want to make sure I'm not, you know, sending us into the red by doing this. So yeah, I'll buy these 4, I'll get started, and hopefully we'll just start accruing money as well. while I do some of these things. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to sever this connection right here and just start making my way towards this garbage facility right here. So I did end up making use of the parallel tool, and I think part of the reason I wanted to do that actually is just so I could get a consistent distance between these two segments, and you'll see that I went pretty far here. The reason for that is that I want to preserve the right-of-way, so if I, in the future, say want to upgrade to 3 lanes on either side, or even 4 lanes, 4 lanes looks actually possible. So this allows me to upgrade all the way up to 4 lanes, and then if there's space on the outside, I can also do that. So that is the reasoning behind that. It might look a little bit weird at first, but it is a plan for the future. And I can already see I'm gonna need this other tile over here, so let me purchase this one, and this one. We'll get started there. So I will be reusing as many segments as I possibly can. And then in certain places, like where this bridge starts, I'm gonna give it a little bit of a second go. And there's 2 reasons for that. So one is that if we look over here, the slope of this is probably fine for a highway. For a freeway, I think I'd want that dip to be gone. So I'd want it to be a little bit more gradual going up to that place there. And then the other reason is that I think I can probably, if I'm going to be reusing this segment, I can reuse it in either direction. So I can either build a new highway on this side, or I can build a new highway on this side. Ultimately, what's going to drive the decision making there is going to be this landing point here. And I've been thinking about possibly redoing this just because this is a little bit crowded in here. And I think this rail can honestly just go around this hill instead of through it. And I wish I would have done that in the first place, but I think it'll look a little bit better with it kind of on the side of the hill here. So I'm going to redo that as well. So because of that, this space right here is a little bit tight. So I'm going to probably bring the highway on this side and build a bridge, and I'll send this side over in this direction. So a couple of things to notice there. One is that I made sure to double check and triple check my work, because initially this segment right here was a little bit lumpy. So I redid it. And then also I spent a little bit extra time to make sure that this segment right here was at the same height as this one. So I got that pretty good. And then I also made sure that this segment here, the slope started a little bit earlier so that the bridge segment starts earlier and there's no retaining wall like right here. And that's just because it's kind of encroaching close to this water right here. So with that in there, the next thing I want to do is just basically just continue this way. I'll have to move these power lines, but that is gonna have to happen more than one time. So I'm not too worried about making changes like that. I also just realized that I'm getting pretty close to this particular boundary here. So I figured I might as well just buy these 3 tiles and get that over with now. In addition, I'm actually just looking at this tile where the rail comes in, and I did mention that I kind of want to bring that around the hill instead of just like straight through this. So I think I'll just buy this tile as well. And I will be doing that first, actually. I'll get the rail line out here just because I think it's going to factor into where I place this highway, just because that is going to be our space constraint, is right here up against this hill. You can kind of see it if I show it like this. Like, we can't really go any closer to this hill than we are already. So I'll use that as my space constraint, and then I'll probably bring the highway over on this right side here. And on this last segment, I do just want to make sure that I'm paused because I have an active rail line coming through here, an active passenger rail line coming through here. So I want to make sure that I'm not disrupting that service. And in hindsight, I think this is probably how I should have done it from the beginning when I was creating the map, but it's always good to come back and clean up your work if you have to later on. I've got this thing running now. I'll keep an eye on it because I hope we don't have that same issue we had before with the trains having to stop at some random junction, but it looks like we're probably good with what we've got in here. And just to give you a quick look at the terrain, yeah, it ends up making a lot more sense, and I was able to stay on basically the one contour line. And now we've come to a spot that's pretty tricky. So I mentioned this before, but this garbage facility, I want to maintain this. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge to incorporate this into this highway. It's going to need to be part of an interchange. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something like along the lines of bring this highway back to here. And I'm going to keep this road up until around here somewhere. And I'm going to incorporate this into a larger interchange right here, one that goes towards the bypass, but also brings traffic over this way. So I think I'm gonna have to rethink a little bit of what I did here, but in the end, I think that's probably the best solution. And then this freeway is gonna come probably up over this way and continue on that way. Okay, and I think this was step 1, so that was basically just to bring this highway all the way over to here, get rid of that interchange, and then I'll just redo the whole thing and make probably a full interchange right here. And at this point, I think I've got things set up such that I can bring this segment right here of the freeway up and over this highway here, and then start connecting it into the existing infrastructure right here. So as I was attempting to get things linked up from up here down to here, I kind of noticed that this bridge right here is basically at the level of this right here, which makes sense because that's where the old highway used to come into. So I think in the end, I'm probably gonna have to redo this bridge anyways. And if we just take a look, I think this turn right here is a little bit too sharp for a freeway. So I'm not too bothered by that. I think it makes sense that in a project of this size, you have some things that get redone like that. As I was grading things out, I came across this area right here, and it kind of bothered me a little bit. The reason being that this hill right here, it's kind of draining all of its runoff water down this way in the case that it's raining. So all that water would come down this way and it would start to pool in this area right here. So the bottom of this highway is going to end up flooding pretty frequently, and that's not something that I want. So as a precaution for that, what I'll do is I'm going to take this highway back just a little bit, and then I will grade this out to this level, and actually probably even one level higher. And with that raised up a little bit here, what I can do is I can just come over here, shift the terrain down just a tad. I can make like almost a little bit of a retention pond right here. So this was probably about the level that this area was before. So what we can say actually would have happened is this terrain right here was lifted up above this area right here. And this is actually something I've kind of seen around Highway 101 in South Bay, kind of South San Francisco area, is that there are these areas that are just kind of wetland areas next to the highway. And I imagine they probably were naturally that way, but part of it was probably that these areas were, you know, naturally there, and they either left them or made them to be a little bit more of a wetland area than before, just so that it could retain the water and not flood the freeway. So pro tip, don't disconnect all of your water supply and then resume the game and expect things to go well. That is an issue that I'm running into right now, that I accidentally left the game unpaused for a while with, not too long actually, but long enough with the power lines not connected. So I'm gonna get that back in place. The reason I disconnected them is I just wanted to basically replace them up along this highway here, and then bring them over this way. So what I've ended up doing over here at the entrance into Costanoa is I just kind of did a temporary solution, which was I brought one side of the freeway out here. So this is kind of like the on-ramp, and then the off-ramp just comes straight into here where it used to come in. Like I said, this is just a temporary solution. So in the future, I'll have a proper interchange around here. And the freeway will likely take a little bit of a different route. But for now, this will do just fine. The next thing I want to do is I want to make sure I get this interchange in right here. And actually, probably even before that, I'll want to come back over here and start connecting things up back here. And I could probably finish off the whole freeway at this point. Okay, and I think it's kind of hard to avoid... Whoa, that plane just did something wild. But anyways, it's kind of hard to avoid not pausing at this point. So I'm just going to quickly pause and get this segment of the freeway done. And I'll not worry about this interchange just yet. And once that's done, we should be hooked up all the way over to here. And we'll see a lot of traffic initially, I think, but I'm not going to worry about those things right now. That last segment is in there now, so what I can actually do now is unpause. So it's gonna cause a lot of traffic in Costanoa. The reason being that there used to be a small interchange right here, and that interchange allowed people to go from this connection and then just skip over here and go to that connection. People won't be able to do that anymore, so they'll just have to go all the way through Costanoa and then out this way. That's of course temporary. I'm just gonna build this interchange, but I did want to have the interchange be something that I built after. So this is going to be a pretty simple interchange, and because I have this big project going already, I'll go ahead and remove that at-grade crossing, and I'll bring this highway up and over this freeway. And while I'm here, actually, what I'm going to do is rename this freeway to Highway 101, and I don't actually really know, and let me give that north. So Highway 101 North, and Highway 101 South. And I don't know if that's just what I call this freeway, Highway 101. Like, it's kind of weird that I keep calling it a freeway and then in real life I call it Highway 101. I'm not sure if that's me misnaming it, if it's just like culturally misnamed, or if I just totally don't understand the naming of freeways and highways in California. Probably a mixture of many of those things, but for now, I'm just gonna kind of ignore my ignorance of that, and I'll continue with my interchange. So like I was saying, I want to bring this highway up and over the rail and up and over the freeway right here. That should be fairly easy. The one kind of oddity, I guess, is the on and off ramps are going to be maybe a little bit weird, but I'm not going to worry too much about that for now. That's one side done. I kept it pretty simple here. I didn't want to do anything too complicated, just a simple trumpet interchange, I think this is. So the other side will be hopefully just as straightforward, a similar kind of action going on here. So that's that interchange down. I like how it ended up looking, especially like right over here. I noticed as I was terraforming things, this kind of just naturally came up on this hill here. So that was really beneficial. Like I tried to make it look that way, but it ended up working a little bit better than I had initially anticipated. And then if we just kind of take a look at all of our grades here, I think everything's pretty well graded properly. Nothing too crazy here. On and off ramps like this, you do tend to see a little bit of verticality to them, like steeper slopes at these kinds of areas, because there's always traffic slowing down here, so you don't have to worry too much about it. I did notice just like right in here looks a little bit odd, so I am gonna redo that really quickly. And that's probably a small change, or at least it might seem like a very small change, but I'm a pretty firm believer that a lot of those kinds of small changes and small improvements will stack up over time, and in the end you'll get something that looks a lot better. So that's why I take a little bit of extra time to make those small changes, just because of that stacking effect. So hopefully this is all working out well now, and it does look like it's functioning pretty well, but you can really see now the amount of traffic that is coming through here. And that is somewhat concerning to me, because if I come over here, looks like a lot of it hasn't made its way over here yet. But you can see a huge platoon of cars here coming in. So let's actually let's see what happens when they get to our interchange here, our little temporary interchange. So here they come. I imagine it's going to back up a little bit. I mean, it's okay. They're making their way through. Just the classic things like people making their lane changes at the very last moment, but that's actually, I don't know, I would say that's pretty accurate to how people drive in real life. So you know, as much as it makes me upset in this game, it also does that in real life. So there we go. The other interchange that I want to get going on is this one right here, and we can kind of do some interesting things here. So for one, I can use this stub of this highway to actually make an interchange on this side. So I can make on and off ramps right here, and that will work just fine. On the other side, we can probably make use of a roundabout somewhere in here. That's probably our best bet. I'm gonna have a think about that, but I'll get started on this side first. And as I was thinking about it, this part of the interchange also ends up being pretty easy too, and that's because I can make use of this hill here to get up to this side, and then the off-ramp can make use of this hill as well to get right around here. It ended up taking a little bit longer than I initially thought, but in the end, it was a fairly easy interchange like I thought, like not too much going on here, and I avoided having to use a roundabout. So the one drawback I would say is that you can't get off of the highway from this direction and then go towards this way. In the end, all that really means is that the garbage trucks, when they come back to this facility, they'll have to come around this way. Not the end of the world, I think, but it will add a little bit of time for them. So in the future, that's something I'll have to think about. And this is actually pretty cool. So I saw these symbols over here, and I've actually never really seen those, but it's high resource costs. And it looks like all of these, it is stone that is the input. So all of these industrial companies, they require some stone. And right now we only actually have this mining facility right here, price mining, and that's ore mining. So something for the future, I definitely need some sort of stone mine. Those can go anywhere, fortunately, but I just haven't had a chance to put that in, I guess. So I'm thinking probably somewhere over in these hills over here, somewhere near this mine right here, but that's, I don't know, something pretty cool, I guess. The economic simulation in City Skylines isn't always the best, but I do like that the game is kind of prompting me to make a certain type of industry. And there's two things that I want to do as I close out the episode. The first is I want to go through this area and finish things off here. And then the second thing is I also want to make sure that all the neighborhoods that I created in the past few episodes have names. So I'll start right here. And as I said earlier, I think I want to keep this pretty open right here so that when you're on this side of the street, you get a clear view over to the train station. So I want to make this really the focal point of this area. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use these same pedestrian streets right here and bring that all the way through, and then I'm going to make a cross right here on the other side. And then right here in the middle is where I want to put one of our fountains in, and I'm going to have to kind of probably do a little bit of trial and error here because I'm not exactly sure the size of these fountains. You can see we have one actually over here, so I think I probably want to use one of these two if I can, although maybe just this one right here is good enough for the center right here. And it looks like, if I kind of zoom in here, this is pretty much the size of this central piece right here. Like the width is about the width of this, so that should help me to figure out exactly the size of the roads that I need here. And that's going to be way larger than I actually need, but I think I can use services to kind of clean things up around here. And the other thing I want to make sure I do while I'm here and have thought about it is I want to have some sort of a circulation pattern for the service vehicles that come through here. So right now it's just kind of whatever I drew in the beginning, but I want to have that a little bit more thought out. So I'll go ahead and I want everything to kind of funnel in, let's say funnel out this way actually. So I'll bring these out like that. This one should come out, and then these two can come in like that. And this I'll just make a standard roundabout like so. And I'm satisfied where this ended up. So what I did is I ended up hijacking the surface off of this park and just surrounded this entire thing with that one single surface so it looks a little bit more uniform. And then I just added in a playground, a basketball court, and then detailed the front of this basketball court with a little food vendor area. Like I said, I didn't want to do anything too crazy here, just a small amount of detailing to add a little bit of texture to the area, but to still allow for you to see all the way through the train station here, because that is the focal point of this particular area. Now I want to finish things off by naming all of the unnamed neighborhoods that I have left. I also want to say that if you do end up having another name idea, feel free to drop it below anyways. I am open to changing most of these. Anything that's already been named is pretty much set in stone, such as like downtown here, Harlem Heights, Dodge Hill, etc. But any of the neighborhoods that I'm about to name, like 3, 2, 4, etc., all these other ones, I'm pretty open to changing later on. So yeah, if you end up having some suggestions, feel free to drop those below. So I'll start here left to right with number 3, and this one is just going to be named Baker. Not necessarily a particular reason, but there is a neighborhood in Denver called Baker that I've actually never been to, but I've always liked the look of from overhead view and like Google Maps and stuff. So yeah, I really just kind of like that name. That's mostly it. There's also a Baker Street in San Francisco that I am a pretty big fan of. And then we'll head over here to number 2, and this one is going to be Oldwood. And I just like that name because this is a neighborhood that has a lot more trees and it's a little bit of an older neighborhood, so that's pretty much it. It's just Oldwood. And then if we continue on to number 4 here, that will be Laguna Park. So the first half is kind of inspired by this area here. It's like, I don't know, almost like a lagoon. It's not really a lagoon, but Laguna just kind of has that water vibe. I don't know exactly how to say it, but the second half of the name Park is mostly just because of this old industrial park that's here. So I wanted to incorporate that into the name. You could also argue that this area here is just a large park. And then we'll go over here to number 5. And this one will be called Divisadero. And Divisadero is a street as well in San Francisco, and it's a pretty prominent commercial street. But I basically use that name here because this area right here is kind of dividing our downtown from Embarcadero right here. So that's pretty much the entire inspiration for that name. And 6 here will be called Founders Landing. I initially thought maybe I'd call it Founders Park, but I ended up going with Founders Landing. And that's mostly just because this area is going to be the landing point for the bridge that comes out across the bay from Alameda County. And it just feels like it suits it a little bit better. And we have got Laguna Park right here, so I don't want to necessarily overuse that one word. And then we can head over here to number 7, which will be called Foundry Point. And that's really just indicative of this area being very industrious. And, you know, there's, I guess, foundries here, which I honestly don't even really know what a foundry is, but it sounds industrious. And then this is just kind of like, you know, a little point here. And number 8, this one will be Mariner's Rest. And I really like this particular name because like this area right here, you could imagine that maybe ships are coming in right here. And then this could have been, you know, like an old tavern or something around here, an old inn. And the mariners who stopped through maybe stopped in this area. The last one is over in this direction, and it's this 9th one here, which is pretty much just connecting Costanoa up to this garbage facility here. And as such, it'll be named The Strip. And obviously we know of the Strip in Las Vegas. This is a very different strip. It's more of a geographical strip in the sense that it connects up our garbage facility up to the main city here. Up next is Baymont, and I have not been here for a while, and it kind of shows because, I mean, look at all these ambulances first of all, and then check out this just absolutely massive pileup on Emerson Street here. That is so insane. So I'm not exactly sure what is going on over here in Baymont. Clearly we don't have enough ambulances in this area. I could have sworn that I had a hospital that covers everything, and it does in fact do that. Only 6 out of 30 vehicles in use, so they better hightail it over to Baymont because this place is in need of some ambulances for sure. But that'll be something for another episode, and like I said, now I just want to focus on naming things. Neighborhood number 1 right here, I just went with Ventana. And honestly, I just know that that's, I think, window in Spanish. Not really much of a reason to name this place Ventana other than like there's a window over to the sea over here, but I don't know. I just kind of like that name, so I went with it. Number 2, I can click on it, will be Harvest Quarter. And the inspiration for that is like, if you know of New Orleans has the different quarters, I think is what they call some of the neighborhoods there. So I'm taking inspiration from that because New Orleans has a lot of French history. And of course, Harvest, because, I mean, look at it. This is just a bountiful place right here. I thought about adding something in about wind, but that's a little bit too on the nose. So I just went with Harvest Quarter. You could argue that's also quite on the nose with Harvest, but I'm sticking with it. I like it. But that is going to do it for this episode. As a quick recap of what we got done today, first, I initiated phase 2 of the Bay Bridge Transportation Plan, and that involved upgrading our highway into town into a 4-lane freeway. I also built some interchanges to connect to the existing highway infrastructure, and over near our train station, I added in 2 more blocks of housing, as well as 1 block of park space in front of the station. I didn't end up getting to the freight rail station that I thought I was going to, but that is something I will get into in the next episode most likely. But I'm pretty happy with where things stand right now. I think the county overall is primed for expansion, so I'm pretty excited for the future episodes where I'll be bringing in probably a lot more high density, but then also sprawling out. So if you have any ideas on that front, I am always receptive to those, and you can leave those in the comments below. But that is going to do it for this one, and I will see you in the next one.